Y'all, it's been a doozy of a day. Last few days.
And it is dreary
It is
outside.
so dreary out. But it is a great day to talk about boundaries. Today we're on interpersonal relationships, right? So those close to you. It could be a spouse, it could be a best friend, it could be a family member. So just that inner circle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, girlfriend, let's talk about this. So I love the definition of a boundary being understanding where, I'm an individual. I have my own thoughts, my own emotions, my own perspective. Yet I can self-identify it and then bring those to a relationship where, based on where I am in the continuum of my journey of health and healing, and then I can self-identify, wow, where I am right here, this is what a health orbit looks like for me. And then to tell you, hey, Spring, this is what I need right now. This is a boundary I need honored and celebrated. And that is something that I think is important to know, is that we're always growing. And as we progress as humans, our boundaries, there's some that will never change, right? Like safety and, respect and things like that. But sometimes as we're grappling with something, our needs for certain boundaries are there while we heal, and then there's no need for them anymore, so.
Yeah, so one thing that I think a lot of people deal with is maybe they don't have their sense of individuality. And so they don't know how to identify what their needs are. And in that situation, you really have to evaluate your surroundings and your environment and think, is this healthy? Does this bring me joy? Does this bring me peace? Does this bring me comfort?
Right.
And if your answer is no, then you absolutely need to take a step back and adjust your situation and evaluate where you want to go and how you can provide yourself with a safe environment. Because once you do that, then you can position yourself to align your head and your heart and say, these are my feelings, these are my desires. But if you've never been in that situation, you know, whether childhood or marriage or any sort of relationship, it's important to have that relationship with yourself first.
Yes.
Once you identify, your own heart and what you want for your life, then that's the first step in moving forward with your healing journey.
Yeah, well, we can't really receive love if we don't know who we are, and then that person who we know, we've gotten to know, is the person who's showing up. Then we can actually taste and feel the love. Otherwise, we're always like, we're waiting for it to, run away, disappear, be abandoned, be all that, rejected. Have you ever seen the movie Runaway Bride? Like, that's a long, long ago movie, but she didn't know how the whole thing was discovering how she liked her eggs.
Right.
Every guy she dated, she was like, oh yeah, this is my favorite. And then remember, it's like he goes and starts investigating her, and the guy's like, no, this is her favorite, and this is her favorite. I just think that's a good visual for somebody who doesn't have identity. Like they don't know. They're an amazing human. People love being with them, but they haven't, for whatever reason, taken the time to self-love, self-identify. We start learning as infants, where we end and another person begins. Like there's that baby moment where the baby is looking up at the mom. They think they are one. And then there's a shift where you're like, no, becomes their favorite word, and that is huge for self-awareness. And for learning what kind of boundaries do I want to have? Where do I end? Where do you begin? And how does this dance work?
And once you learn how to love yourself, then you learn how you need to receive love. Everyone has a different love language. Everyone can receive love in different forms, but there's one that truly satisfies your heart and your soul. And you have to learn what that is, and you can't do that if you don't know yourself. You can't expect someone else to respect you and love you in the way that you need and you desire without doing it for yourself. You have to be that example for yourself. And at the end of the day, the only person you really can rely on is yourself. You might lose the people that are in your life today, and you might not have them in the next moment. So you really have to learn how to be that stability for your own self.
Right. That's one of the reasons why we have to learn that we are not victims and we're not powerless. That we are so powerful, and to learn that our brains, for years, scientists believed that the brain was solid, that even a traumatic brain injury, it couldn't be healed. Like once you built channels in your brain of thought, they're there. Like that stinks. This is this is who I am. It's such good news that we can actually change.
Yes.
Like we can change what we believe about ourselves. We can change things that we have thought about ourselves that are toxic, that are not bringing life to us. We are not victims to those thoughts. We actually control those things just by thinking them, coming out of agreement with one thought and taking a hold of and then acting upon another. Yes. It's so simple, but it's hard to do, right? We were just talking about infancy being so important for realizing what we're watching our caregivers. And if we don't see healthy boundaries, if we don't see somebody loving themselves well, then you fast forward into adulthood, and then you're like, you don't even know how to establish those healthy boundaries. So then you naturally, emotionally have assumed dysfunction equals love. And so you replicate and you look around and you're like, how did I built this? How did I build this? We built it through our thoughts, right? Every action, everything that's built comes from our thoughts. And so we've got to take a look at what we're thinking about ourselves, because there's two different ways to respond, right? It's to have no boundaries or have walls. Those are the two dysfunctional, I'm sure there are variations, but in order to receive love, I have to not exist, really. I need to just show up however anybody wants me to show up, and then let them consume me so they don't leave me. That is, and you're empty. You're left empty. Same thing with the people who because maybe you have a traumatic childhood.
Yeah, those are trauma responses.
You throw up walls, say, I'm going to be safe, but then no one can get in. Even the safe people can't get in. And so you're left with no connection. And we weren't made to be alone. We were made to be a community. So I think it's so important. And people get nervous when you start talking about realizing that we have our own thoughts. We have it's like young love. They're like, oh, everything's my favorite, and this is and these are our favorite, and these are. You're just like, no, there's beauty in you being an individual, and then yet choosing to come together as one.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's in all those relationships.
Yes. I think I'm a firm believer that, a healthy relationship is two whole people or multiple people coming together and adding value to each other's lives. When you can stand firm in your beliefs, in your love, in, anything, and then come together with a community or another person and add value to someone else's life, that is extremally powerful.
Yes.
And it's really liberating for people who have had to live through those, trauma response wall, building walls and all of those things. It's setting boundaries that are unhealthy. And it's really powerful to walk through that hardship and then be able to stand there and confidently say, this is how I feel. This is how I want to provide, to my family or to my children or my community, anything. It's a really powerful position to be in.
Yeah. And something that I think that we don't often talk about is how important self-control is in these relationships. Either the self-control to say, here's my healthy boundary and I will not move it.
Yeah.
Once you identify it, because everything is going to be so awkward and unfamiliar to have a healthy boundary once you start trying. It's like learning to ride a bike. You're like, oh, I'm not good at this. Self-control is saying, I don't care what the excuses are. I'm going to honor this healthy boundary. And then also vice versa, to have the self-control to say, no, I will not throw up the wall. I will sit on my hands because I know that is not what's going to bring me love.
Yes.
That's not what's going to bring me the desires of my heart.
Yes.
You know, and same thing with like respecting each other's boundaries. Maybe you see somebody's boundary and you're like, I know that's their boundary. I know they've articulated it, and I've said I care, and I do care, but I want, or I need, or I, right? And so there's this me first mentality. There's going to have to be self-control there to say, I will not go take from them crossing that boundary. I will choose to believe that there is enough for me to still get my needs met. And that's a conversation where you say, hey, listen, I see that boundary and it's so important to me. And I'm so committed to honoring that even when I'm feeling like I'm not getting this need met. But could we talk about how I could get this need met in a legitimate way? One of the things we talk in our family is about like painful interactions. They're when we meet legitimate needs in illegitimate ways.
Yeah.
You know, and we do it so often without realizing it, but just learning to have a conversation and getting the language to say, I'm not going to just I'm going to say, hey, you're worth loving well. Can we talk?
Yes. And, on both sides of that, when you are the person who's setting the boundary, it's, sometimes it's hard to ask people, I need you to meet this need for me. I need to set this boundary. I need you to honor that. And it's hard because you don't want to hurt the person.
Right.
You don't want them to feel rejected by you, but it's something that is a requirement for your needs, and you're responsible for your health. So, but they don't know how to help you if you don't express what you need. And sometimes, it's easy for us to kind of shut down. We don't want to hurt anybody, so we just kind of get, we cringe and we're like, oh, I just really need to shut down and pull back, and I just need to do what's best for me. But the love that your support system has for you doesn't change based on, whether you have a boundary or not, or what your boundary is. They want to help you and they want to honor your boundaries, but you must express what you need to them. Otherwise, they are going to be invasive because they love you and they want to help you and they don't know what else to do but come to you and say, I want to be here for you, but I don't know how. I just need you to tell me. You have to be open enough to share your heart with them so that they can honor you and respect you in the way that they want to and the way that you need them to.
Yeah, one of the things that we say a lot in our nuclear family is fight for your first name and your last name. And it kind of sums it up. It sums it up really easy because it's like sometimes we find ourselves in one or the two camps, right? Where we're just thinking others, and we're like, oh, I really have not taken care of my needs. Or we're just me. And then we're like, oh, who are you people? You exist to serve me, And so realizing that and asking each other, are you just fighting for your first name right now? Or are you going to fight for your last name? And, and it can be the last name of friendship. It can be the last name of humanity, for crying out loud, Right. But I think that's a huge part of realizing it's both and. It is I am valuable and we are valuable. And just having those conversations and unpacking it, because a lot of times you don't know what you need until you start talking about it.
Yes, and I think that is really important. I mean, you even when you're dealing with grief, you don't always know where your heart is until you start just expressing it, even alone. I've had moments where I have been grieving and I revealed my own heart to myself and I was like, wow, I didn't really realize that that's where I was at. And I'm thankful that I had that moment with myself so I even knew where I was so that I knew how to move forward and things like that. But I love that first and last name thing, and I think that's great to apply to yourself if you're a people pleaser too. That's a fantastic, I lived 30 years of my life pleasing others. So and once I realized that my needs are just as important as my desire to fulfill their needs. That changed my entire life. I mean, my healing process really took off at that point. And but I think that's just a really good idea for people to apply that are people pleasers. I love that idea.
Yeah, definitely. Well, do you have any other tidbits to share?
So I'll just read what I wrote, because these were really deep thoughts that I had about this subject and things that were on my heart. So I want to share this, and we can kind of use it as a recap if you want. Internal boundaries affect our external behaviors and boundaries, because when we are emotionally engaged, whether negatively or positively, we will act accordingly. The first step is acknowledging your feelings. When we feel positive, it's easy for others to support us. When we're feeling down, it's sometimes hard for others to understand how we feel and how to help us. Feeling like you're surrounded by people who can't relate often result in building a wall or barrier between you and those who care for you. The love that our support system has doesn't change. They just may not know how to help if you feel uncomfortable opening up. So it's really important to acknowledge the fact that you may not feel like opening up, but also acknowledging the importance of it. To, like you talked about how you don't realize your feelings or your thoughts until you start talking about them.
Right.
So that's, and then that helps everybody, helps you and them. Another example is if you don't have a support network, maybe those you're surrounded by dismiss your feelings, or maybe they invalidate you until you shut down. If you don't have a support system, if your environment is a toxic environment where you don't have someone you feel safe opening up to, that goes back to what we talked about at the beginning, is really evaluating your environment. And you are in control of your situation. You're in control of your own health, and you are not stuck. You might feel like you're stuck, but you have the ability and the means to shift your situation, whether it's little by little or whether it's all at once. So you have the ability to change the way you think, which will change the way you speak and you behave, which will ultimately change your entire environment. So don't ever feel like you're stuck. You have the ability to do what needs to be done.
Yeah, you're powerful.
Absolutely.
I mean, that was one of the most liberating things for me to realize I'm not a victim. I'm powerful. And I love the old proverb that says, greater is he who controls his own spirit. It's like, it takes, we talked about this, it takes self-control. It takes control to say, I will not think this toxic thought. I will think this thought. I will make this my new normal. That's inner control, inner power. It says, greater is he who controls his own spirit than he who captures a city. If we saw, one of these superheroes on the Avengers capture a whole city, you'd be like, whoa, that's crazy strength. But the power is, it actually takes, this is real power.
Right.
This is real beauty.
And that's you taking control of your environment. It's the same thing. It really is.
Because you're a city.
Yes.
We're like, and that's the thing. We are cities together. So one of the other things that I was thinking about this was, a lot of times when we feel insecure in our interpersonal relationships, we say, yeah, these are my thoughts, that, we can become indignant, or even in our self-awareness, like, this is how I feel. This is, if I did that, I would be feeling or thinking this, right? And the danger with that is we can project. And so one of the things that's super helpful is to not, like, self-control, not project, ask questions.
Yes.
So maintain individuality and simultaneous curiosity about, I wonder why they did this, that, and the other. That hurt me. Why did they do that? And then that conversation is where you go and you say, hey, when you did that, that hurt.
Yes.
Do you know why you did it? Or maybe you don't even know, and that's okay too. But can we talk about that?
Yes.
Because a lot of times that'll shut down relationships, is if we answer the why.
Yeah, and that comes with assuming how the other person thinks, feels, or the reason behind their behavior. And when you assume things, that isn't truth.
It's true.
It's so much better to go to the person and say why, how, and everything. So it's really powerful to go to the source. It's really powerful to ask the hard questions, and it's also powerful to give the answer to the hard questions, because if someone loves you enough to ask you a hard question, then they love you enough to sit and hear your answer. They really want your truthful answer if they're asking you. One thing that I wanted to add too is Eleanor Roosevelt said, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." And that goes along with
that quote.
Me too. I remind myself and others of that regularly. That goes along with the people who don't feel like they have a support system. If you're in a situation, an environment that is not safe for you to open up, then that's something that is a really powerful thought that you can keep in the back of your mind, and that helps you move forward little by little, or the leap, whatever you feel is best for your situation. But I love that. That quote.
And that quote helps you like embolden, like, I'm not a victim. I'm not powerless. I can choose self-control, and I can plan a whole new garden for me to live in.
Yes.
So.
It's a transition. Everything is a transition. Learning
chronically transitioning.
Yes, learning yourself, learning how to interact with others, and as our journey continues, our boundaries shift, our needs change. We need different things from different people and from ourselves, and it's okay to establish a boundary that may one day shift. That's okay.
It's expected. That's part of the
and
growth
the communication
process.
is key when that happens. So
Yes.
everyone is on the same page, and your support system knows exactly how to support you.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, let's have some fun engaging in our close relationships and having healthy boundaries. Not being boundaryless and not have self-protective walls, but to live in the beautiful part of humanity, which is it takes risk to engage.
Yes.
To self-aware, to become self-aware, and then to be brave and bring it forward.
And the ultimate goal is peace. We want peace within ourselves. We want peace within our relationships.
Yes.
Every decision, every situation that you come to, every boundary, whatever it is, make sure the goal is peace. That way everyone's on the same page, and you all can love each other well, and you can struggle well together. That's so important.
That's good. Let's go struggle well together.